Excellent. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the contractor behaviors around their buying, where they're getting information, some of the challenges that homeowners are experiencing. I think it's important to understand the level of education that's been happening on the homeowner side of our industry over the last several years. You may not think they're knowledgeable, but they do. So that we have to be very, very mindful as contractors, manufacturers, and suppliers that homeowners are now feeling that they almost have an equal seat at the table when it comes to discussions around product and where to buy, how to buy, et cetera. So we'll look at some of those behaviors, and then we'll look specifically at some research that we conducted in conjunction with our partners over at the Home Improvement Research Institute to look at that homeowner and contractor relationship. Why are contractors or why are homeowners using a contractor? What's going well in that relationship? Where is there room maybe for improvement from the contractor side to really meet those expectations that homeowners have? Okay, so first let's start with some of the maybe the challenges and behaviors that homeowners are experiencing themselves. Keep in mind that roughly 80% of all homeowners are some level of DIY, light, moderate, or heavy. So that may be yard work, it may be painting a room, it may be general home maintenance, but they are at some point throughout the year probably doing some work on their home themselves. So they've got exposure into the home improvement building product space, maybe not to the degree obviously the contractors do, but they are shopping, they are navigating the challenges that are presented with a lot of contractors today, availability being one of them. So this is something that homeowners understand as well. We know as contractors and pros that this has been a huge, huge challenge for productivity over the last year and a half, 2 years. Homeowners have felt it as well. In fact, well over 50% have experienced some sort of availability issues, and those that do are finding solutions to them. They're finding different suppliers, they're finding different products, et cetera. So, as contractors are faced with this challenge, so are homeowners. There is an understanding there when you think about what you're communicating and how you're communicating to homeowners. They get this availability piece. Delays. Homeowners, even when they're doing their own projects, they're also experiencing delays. So again, I think there's a lot that homeowners can relate to when we think about contractor activity, and this is why we want to highlight it. They're not in the dark, and if you as a contractor you said, sorry, we're a week behind because we've got some availability or cost challenges that are causing a delay in your project, the majority of homeowners are going to say, yeah, I get it, I understand, I've been there too. Okay, certainly it's more frequent experiencing issues for availability, more frequent experiencing issues because of cost for those younger generations than older generations. But by and large, you've got about half of the homeowner DIY market that have experienced project delays due to availability or material costs. And I will tell you that as you all probably know, this cost issue over the last few months as we've been tracking it is becoming more and more severe both amongst contractors and homeowners. So be prepared. We'll talk about this later, but my gosh, be prepared. If you're not already having budget discussions and pricing discussions, it's going to start fast and furious before you know it. So what about media? So where are homeowners, where are DIYers getting their information? How are they becoming knowledgeable? This also gives us an insight into where we can position our brand, our product, our company to get in front of those homeowners that may be looking to do their own project and convert them into hiring out. So first and foremost, they are online. Obviously, the younger the generation, the more online research they're doing when it comes to home improvement projects and products. They are going in large part to home improvement stores like Lowe's.com, HomeDepot.com, et cetera. Obviously, Google for everybody. But Amazon has become a really big source as well for homeowners, oftentimes to look at reviews of products. So you as a contractor may be recommending a particular brand. You better believe that homeowner is more than likely to go online and look at reviews of that brand or do a comparison of 2 or 3 brands, 2 or 3 products that you may be recommending for a project. Amazon has become one of those sources for reviews and product information. Same with manufacturer websites. The big takeaway here is there's no one magic bullet. Homeowners are jumping around to gather information. They've got everything at their disposal these days, the same way that a contractor or other trade might. So they're oftentimes going to a supplier site and the manufacturer site, and then maybe getting some review information from Amazon. Kind of this whole collective is really working in tandem for homeowners today to build their education base.
Hey, Grant, quick question. Do you think that, I've always, personally, I've always believed with my 30 years in the home services space that the contractor is the conduit to the product for the consumer. Do you think that's shifting a little bit? And is there But in the end, is the contractor usually the biggest influencer in that decision?
Contractor still, Kevin, I'm going to tell you, it's going to vary by category, right? So as we think about roofing versus finished plumbing, right, faucets and shower heads, there's going to be a different level of involvement and knowledge base with the homeowner. It may be a color discussion, and Ryan, you can jump in here on the roofing piece. If we're talking about roofing and shingles, it may just be, well, here's the color I want, but I have no knowledge about the underlayments. I have really no knowledge about GAF versus certainty. But when it comes to, here's the faucet options, hold on, Mr. or Mrs. Contractor, I know what look I want. Here's what you need to achieve. Go find something to do it. Ryan, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing in your business when it comes to the homeowner engagement at almost sometimes the commodity level.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I frame it, right? Like shingles to a degree are a commodity, and if you're going to try and position yourself as, well, I'm using Atlas, well, so might the 5 guys right behind you be using it as well. So you better have a lot more than just that to be able to lean on with it. And yeah, for the most part, for homeowners, you can educate them and try and help them understand why you're using a specific shingle, but it's colored. Like that's the big part that they're looking at with it. And to be honest, you ask 50% of homeowners wouldn't even know what color the roof currently is because they just don't put that there a lot of the time, right? So
that's right. That's right. Totally different discussion though, Kevin, when you get into a kitchen remodel.
For
totally
sure.
Different.
Absolutely. That's an inspirational and aspirational purchase. That's something where, they don't call the kitchen the heart of the home for no reason. And and a roof a shingle, there's something to be said there. I agree.
Right. But overall, Kevin, I would say that the level of homeowner knowledge, their perceived knowledge has increased. The level of homeowner engagement has increased really kind of across the board. And we'll touch on this here in a little bit, but I think there's an importance for contractors these days to be walking more in tandem with the homeowner than to be telling the homeowner what to do every step of the way. Yeah, contractors still looked at as that expert. However, the homeowner still wants to be a part of that process in many, many cases.
Thank you.
Okay. Want to talk about social, and this is important because I think it is a window for contractors, for manufacturers, for suppliers to begin accessing and leveraging exposure amongst homeowners. The blue lines mark those that have it just for personal use. And as you might expect, Gen Y, Gen X are certainly using social much more than boomers, just even for personal kind of across the board. The orange are those social platforms that are used for building product home improvement research. And what we have are a lot of younger generations using YouTube for how-tos. And we're actually seeing a spike over the last couple of years amongst pros in their use of YouTube for some how-tos and instructional installation, etc. So this YouTube thing is not only a place to be able to gain access and visibility, but it's also one more tool that's allowing the homeowner to feel that much more educated. Hey, I just looked up 3 videos on roofing installation. Are you guys going to be using this and doing it this way? Because I now know, I've seen it done, right? So be mindful that the homeowners are engaging in these platforms and they're able to see in a lot of cases from real professionals actually doing installs, quick tutorials on what to do and what not to do. Facebook is still a highly used a platform as well. And I think this is where we see a lot of contractors and homeowners connecting, using Facebook almost as a portfolio. Same thing with Pinterest, Instagram, much more visual oriented. So as you think about the kitchen remodels and those more aesthetic oriented categories and products, that's where we start going more towards the Pinterest and Instagram for inspiration for those homeowners. Create a lookbook for me, or I found this is what I want. Again, this level of education is increasing amongst homeowners. These are some of the platforms they're using. Okay. Preferred method of contact, and this I think is really critical, and this is really for manufacturers or suppliers, but it also works for contractors. There's this dichotomy between the younger generations and older. The younger the generation, the more likely they want to receive information via social media. You can see 30% of Gen Y wanting to prefer to receive via social versus only 7% of boomers. 43% of Gen Y prefer mobile and apps versus only 7% of boomers. So think about your customer base, and are you able to adjust your communication mediums depending on their preferences? You may be an email only firm, you may be a phone only or an in-person only firm. Well, what happens when those new 35-year-old home buyers are looking to gut their entire house and they just want texts twice a day? Are you set up to be able to do that? Do you recognize the difference in how folks want to communicate throughout their project? Last thing on behavior-wise, we're going to touch on some of this channel use. And again, this is just to give us a little bit of an insight, I think, to how our world has changed over the last 10 years or so in regards to suppliers in our industry. There was a time where especially suppliers were almost contractor only and home centers were DIY only, right? Depot and Lowe's were just for the weekend warriors trying to figure some stuff out themselves. That has changed. We have more contractors today using home centers for a variety of categories, and now we're starting to see homeowners and DIYers use some of those specialty suppliers, lumberyards, Ferguson, et cetera, that might have been exclusive to contractors, Sherwin-Williams, Ben Moore, all that good stuff. So there's much more of a blend and crossover with pros and DIYers using similar channels right now. In fact, over the last couple of years, roughly 20% each year of DIYers have tried a new supplier, because they want to find a specific product in stock. They're looking for better prices. They want to find different options. So again, here goes this kind of mix of worlds where we're seeing homeowners not only become more educated, but they're starting to understand that supply chain a little bit more as well, that the contractors traditionally held very, very close to their chest. And contractors are oftentimes buying from a world that's very, very familiar from a DIYer, from Depot Lowe's.
Are the consumers going back to, are they doing most of this purchasing online, or are they actually going into brick and mortar?
Yeah, great question. So that's what this slide is here. So all the blue is at a physical store in person, right? If you look at it by age, though, there's a big discrepancy. So Gen Y are buying anywhere from 30 to 60% of their home improvement products online. Okay, so there is an expectation and an opportunity, I think, for contractors to be able to buy some stuff online and have it delivered directly to the homeowner, have the homeowner make the order and have it delivered to the job site, whatever the case may be, particularly for those that are younger generations.
Ryan, do contractors do that with big box retailers? Do they ever do that, or is it mainly their, do you find yourself still going through distribution mainly?
It's going to depend on the trade, right? So roofing is the side that I'm most familiar with, and on the roofing side, they'll look at some of it online. You certainly have a lot of people signing based off of emails, PDFs, stuff that they're looking at online, but you still have, like, whether it's kitchen table or showrooms where people like to come in and touch the shingle and look at it and all that stuff, but it tends to be more via the contractor there specifically. Painting, I would imagine, you know, they're often going into paint shops and grabbing swatches and all that stuff, right? So it just depends on the trade.
Category is going to drive it. A lot of the higher price point, more durable goods, we're seeing a lot of online activity for those where they can kind of price shop around, right? And things that have more options. So again, kind of going to the fashion plumbing, fashion electrical are oftentimes more prone to be online purchases. Depot only has 100 faucets in store, but they've got about 10,000 online. So very category driven, Ryan, you're right. So now let's talk specifically about some feedback that some homeowners have around contractors and the engagement and relationship of homeowners versus contractors. First and foremost, this is a monthly study that we do. We've got data that's as recent as this month. Just the overall sentiment that homeowners are feeling right now about, is this a good time or bad time to remodel my home? And we've seen this slight increase to neutrality and almost negativity towards doing a remodel project right now. So as we look at consumer confidence, as we look at builder confidence, and even some contractor confidence, we see this running the same. There's just this sentiment of things are getting really expensive. It's hard to get a hold of things. Labor's very tight. Timelines are built out. So homeowners are maybe going to be a little bit more hesitant in current months to take on a remodeling project. So be mindful of that. You're going to want to understand what their barriers to entry are so you can remove those right away, because I think they are increasing just slightly. Is this a good time or bad time to hire a contractor? Same thing. We're seeing it more and more. Homeowners say, you know, I'm either neutral or probably a little bit of a bad time to be hiring a contractor. And when we ask why, again, a lot of this is starting to come up around budget and price point. It's going to cost me too much. It's getting too expensive. So take those questions head on. Ryan, you're about to say something.
Well, I was curious, like, do you have any data on financing and how many people are holding on to their cash and using financing versus because of this, right, to address this exact thing?
Yeah, we do have some data around that. So the good news is that financing isn't a requirement for most homeowners. In fact, we are at a stronger equity position, at least in the U.S. We have more equity in our homes in this country than we ever have before, ever.
Yep.
Billions and billions of dollars. The problem is, Ryan, what happens is people get skittish when they see rates going up and when they see their home values plateauing. There's just a little bit of a mental reset and a withdrawal from feeling comfortable and confident spending money on my home. I think that may be temporary until people get comfortable with it, but when are things just going to level off and stabilize to allow people to regain comfort?
Do you think that is going? I was last week. I saw that Fitch had increased their inflation rate forecast from like 4.95% to 7% by the end of the year, and then the Fed calling out that there could be anywhere from 5 to 7 rate hikes in that same period of time. As those occur systematically within those systems, do you think that that's going to affect these numbers that we're seeing here and that skittishness that you mentioned?
Absolutely. So we always see there's two things that happen. One is real, where actual demand is removed because rates go up too high. That's more on the home buying side. But home buying is important to our world because we see more activity when someone sells a home and when someone buys a home. So as we remove demand and potential customers from the home buying market, that is one thing that is a result of these rates going up. Affordability goes down, and therefore we actually do remove potential customers from the home buying market. The other thing that happens is more of a head game. And Kevin, we've seen this for years and years and years and years and years. Whenever rates go up, whenever there's some sort of volatility, whether it's political, economic, whatever the case may be, people just they take a beat. Oh man, I don't know. I want to see what's going to happen before I drop 100 gur in my house. Is the world burning, or are we going to be okay? Absolutely. And so some of that is mental and it's just temporary. There is a true remove of customer demand because of that affordability piece. So be very, very mindful of this as you all look at your business and look at your specific markets. Really, I would say start paying a close attention to home values. How are home values trending in your market?
Well, if you're in Denver and probably in Calgary, they are trending like a hockey stick. I'll tell you right now.
And they're forecasted to level off towards the end of this year and into next. And in some markets, maybe even a couple point decline. And if you start seeing declines, even though it's 2%, despite the fact that they've gained 30% over the last 2 years,
right? It's
that mental head game of, oh no, my home value is going down. I don't know that I want to touch that much of my equity. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Okay. What are the reasons they do hire pros? The pros can do a better job, right? So we've looked at data previously that says, why do you do work? If you do it yourself, it's because I enjoy doing the work. There's a big reason to hire a pro because they acknowledge I can't do a good enough job. So that's the main reason, or the work requires a licensed professional, et cetera. Why did you complete it yourself? It's cheaper. Certainly I enjoy the work, but this cost piece, it's going to save me money. So you better believe that homeowners are starting to think more and more around budgets. And what's the most important thing when you select a contractor? Be on time, have a fair price, and do good work. And tell me what's going on along the way. This really hasn't changed too much over the years as we track it, okay? But this be on time thing starts to gain importance in busy markets like we're in now, where more and more contractors don't return calls, don't even show up. I'm sure it's no one listening to this webinar, but the reality is in busy times, contractors start getting a real negative perception. It's like dealing with a car salesman. I'm dreading trying to find a contractor, no one calls me. I mean, there's a lot of negative perceptions that come in busy markets with low labor.
I guess it's a question for both you gentlemen. Is obviously that is a direct correlation to the labor shortage that exists within the market as we speak, right? Like I can't get to this person because I can't get to the job I'm on already. And it's a combination probably of that labor shortage, maybe some supply chain issues and so forth.
100%.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on, but I think we've seen this before this just happened again, 10, 15 years ago. I mean, this is a constant cycle of ebbs and flows of activity in our world. and the contractors don't respond. I'm too busy. I just blow off those that I don't want, and da 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 da. But then I'm, 2 years later, 3 years later, I need work. Well, if only you would have maintained that relationship and been cordial with that person that really wanted you to do some work 3 years ago, you might have some good leads to be calling on today.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. Like I guess the first thing I saw when I looked at this list, if you go back one there, Grant, was the first two. It's exactly what you said on selecting a contractor. It's that point of sale, right? It's that how is the homeowner determining that? But the two that popped out to me right away were just below that, communication and cleanliness. At least from the roofing side, at the end of a job, you will never hear a homeowner say, oh, that job was too expensive, because they don't care. They've already agreed to the price. They don't care at that point, right? The only two things they ever complain about are communication and cleanliness. That's it, right? So it's so interesting, because I think there's some post-production in there as well, as far as the entire experience. But those popped out at me right away, because those are always the two that I'll mention on the post-production experience.
Great points, Ryan. Well, let's look at some of that stuff. So here's some of the project timelines. So how are we doing on project timeline kind of overall? Yeah, pretty good. We still have about 40% that are saying, it's so-so, could be better. But now let's look at some of the communication stuff. I think this is the biggest piece historically that we see when there is conflict. It is almost always around communication. And yeah, you've got about half saying, I agree that the communication, and these are all homeowners that have recently hired a pro to complete a project. You've only got half that are saying, the communication was good. Which means you got the entire other half saying, it was bad.
Yeah.
Communication can be everything. And I think a lot of it has to do with, just tell me what's going on. Again, we looked at data previously in today's webinar that says the homeowner has experienced availability issues themselves. Homeowners have experienced cost issues themselves, so they get it. If you just tell them and communicate with them regularly that says, hey, I'm sorry we're 3 days delayed. I can't get the product from my supplier, it's not in stock. A homeowner's probably gonna go, oh yeah, again, I get it. I've been there, I've done that. Thanks for letting me know, rather than not saying anything for a week. Transparency and communication over the last 2 years with our manufacturing clients, with our supplier clients, has been paramount. Don't dodge any difficult conversations. Hit it head on and hit it quickly.
I guess the manufacturers are having those conversations with their customers, which would be through distribution and through the Ryans of the world. Obviously, they're having those conversations as well, and communication is paramount for them too. So that funnels down.
The good ones, yes, Kevin. The good ones have dealt with availability and cost issues transparently and regularly from day one, and they've seen some of them have actually seen an increase in share, and they've certainly retained their customers. There have been other manufacturers and suppliers that are dodging that conversation or don't have any knowledge. They're losing customers left and right. I'm okay if the product's gonna be 2 weeks late, that's okay. I just need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll finish up here real quick, because I think I'm a little bit over time.
You're doing well. You're okay.
It is really important, really interesting that we've seen over the last few years, particularly with younger generations. It's this involvement with contractors, not just in picking products, but actually like doing some of the work here and there. We see more Gen Y and Gen X saying that they want to be involved in every step of the project throughout the process. And then the shared work idea. So I split some of the work with the pros. Again, more common amongst millennials and some Gen Xers than the boomers. What are you doing as a firm, as a contractor, to allow this level of engagement? It's a real fascinating phenomenon. I think, again, it's being elevated because they feel empowered by the education that they've gathered along the way. They want to be a part of it. I think a lot of it too is also, they're taking a lot of sense of ownership and pride and individuality of their home. They want to be engaged and involved in that process because it's very personal to them. So I would challenge, the listeners and a lot of contractors out there to think about the process and what can you do to allow homeowners in a little bit more. I think that's only going to further and solidify the relationship that you have going forward. So